online.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Virginia Committee of the Whole Working Session, or the Committee of the Whole meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. The time is 9 a.m. Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Baraboo,
Present.
Friedlieb,
Here.
Paulson, 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 Beyondich,
Councilor Paulson, can you hear us? Councilor Beyondich, can you hear us?
Yeah, they can't. Julianne just texted me, they can't hear.
Okay, very good.
what they were before.
Can you hear Larry now?
I can hear Mayor, yes.
Beautiful. Okay. We're in the middle of taking a roll call, so once again, Pam?
Beyondich, Baranzelli,
Present.
Johnson. Here. Mayor Coffey.
Present. Okay, thank you very much. I apologize ahead of time. I have to be out of here by 10:15. I have to, a medical appointment out of the city, so we'll try to get through as much as we can, and then we'll move over to Councilor Baraboo, the Vice Mayor, to take over the rest of the meeting if we're not done by then. So let's start with item number 1 on the agenda, which is Street and Alley, to discuss the parking on Chestnut Street related to handicapped. And I can share some information for you, a meeting with Bill Cole with respect to this. We can, decide wherever we want to put a handicap parking sign. They are now on the edge of the avenues and end of the street, and the reason for that is there's a cutout for that for handicap to get through, particularly the wheelchair individuals. The same would have to be done if we put a handicap parking space in the middle of the street. It takes more than just a sign. We have state guidelines to follow. So we're looking for maybe having staff put a proposal together, what's going to cost, and decide where we want to put those. So with that, bit of information, I look for the council for additional discussion. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Would it cost extra to put some signs in the middle of the blocks that are 10-minute pickup drop-off? I think what the citizen was getting at, and I've heard regularly, is it's a challenge to park on the end of a street and then have to walk a half a block in either direction. And I think one of the things we could do is in the wintertime do a better job of helping business owners understand that when they shovel into the street and leave a berm, that creates a huge challenge for anybody, let alone senior citizens. So I think there's some educational stuff we could do. But I think as we look at our future, designating a site or a parking spot or two in the center of a block as drop-off and pick-up only, and trying to just create that that awareness that those spots are reserved for anybody, whether it's me who's just picking something up from Range Office Supply. That curbside delivery seems to be one of the most common and most utilized, especially for restaurants. And to be able to, as a city, provide that opportunity in the center of a block might be something that we could look at that would only cost the making of the signs and putting them up on a light pole or something. So maybe that's a different solution that we can utilize that creates what they're looking for, which is a little bit more convenience to access the businesses that do exist. So that would be my suggestion as we look at what it would take, especially on the busier blocks in the center of Main Street, just some designated drop-off pickup spots. That would be my suggestion.
And that would be related to handicap parking only?
No, it would just be anybody who needed to, for example, the blocks where Jews and the Rocks and that is, in the middle of that block, putting one or two spots, one spot that says pick up and drop off only. And obviously enforcement we wouldn't have someone standing there, but it would just be that idea that the city is trying to provide access to those businesses for curbside service or picking up to-go orders or whatever that might be.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Johnson. And we did have 10-minute parking signs parked up on the 300 block of Chestnut Street in front of the Material Girl place to accommodate it. It was based on her request. It was based on the request of Pace Analytical next door, but anybody could park there. The concern was we put them up, and then there was concerns from some of the business owners that, hey, how come we can only park there for 10 minutes when you can park every place else for up to 2 hours? And how this is being enforced, and they wanted that sign taken away because it's limiting 10 minutes as opposed to 2-hour authorization for that. So on the agenda, it says handicap parking, but your suggestion is that maybe we try it again, put that 10-minute parking in place. So, Councilor Johnson?
Yes, because we are living in a completely different world than we were a year ago or 2 years ago, and curbside delivery, curbside pickup is common practice now, and trying to provide for that, I think would be something. And if it was more than one spot in front of one business, if it was one spot in the middle of each block on each side, that would provide for, then it would take away how come they get one and we don't, if there was one on for each block. So I guess I would just like it looked into and what the cost of that would be. Totally understand the handicap and accessibility issue with putting one in the middle of the street and the need for having the space on the side for van access and that stuff. So this might be a decent compromise.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, if we do end up with that, Steve, being a handicap spot, it's going to take away some extra spots. If we put a handicap sign, we got to do curb cuts and everything. You can't have them climbing over the curbs, and so I think we need to look at this a little bit harder. My suggestion would be to stick it back to street and alley for a good look and look at the maps and count the number of spaces we have. We have maps of all the parking right now, and I would like to see it go back to my committee, but that's just a personal choice on this. The loading zones, you can't, basically it's a loading zone if you do the other, and you're never going to know how long anybody's been there unless the enforcement person happens to be going by there. So I don't know whether that's a good thing. At least if it's a handicap designated, people do not usually go in that unless there's a sticker on their car because they're afraid of the fines, which are, $200 or more usually. So that would be my suggestion. I don't have an objection if you want to put loading zone signs back in, but the mayor's right, they never worked out in the past.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich, anything you would like to add to this discussion before we maybe kick that back for staff to look at?
No, thank you. I agree that I think it should go back to a committee level and let them look at it further to see what would work best. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think part of the citizen concern was the exact issue that Councilor Johnson is raising, is that, during this time, we're seeing a lot more curbside pickup. Jews and the China Buffet, I believe, are still pickup only. So I think the citizen that came forward was mostly concerned about that curbside issue, and in the middle of the block, even if handicap wasn't feasible, that if we just did 20-minute or 10-minute just curbside area in those busy areas, maybe by Cane Lakes area, Hallmark area, that would be something. And the citizen that I talked to said it would be easier on the slant parking rather than the parallel parking. It would be more accessible. So I think if it goes back to Street and Alley Committee, that I think that was more the concern of the accessibility for curbside delivery rather than, I know the handicap portion was discussed, but I think an alternative solution would be, just as Councilor Johnson is suggesting, to put some signage out. And I understand it's hard to picture that, but I truly feel that the value would be there, our citizens to be able to have in curbside pickup and delivery for businesses.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be looking for maybe a motion to kick that back to a Street and Alley Committee meeting to discuss this further, make recommendations moving forward, or whatever the council deems they like to do. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I would make a motion to refer it back to staff first and see what they would like to do, and move forward appropriately from there.
Thank you. A motion on the floor by Councilor Johnson to move this issue back to staff for investigation, consideration, and recommendation back to the council. Is there support for that?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any? Okay, support. Okay, supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Further support? Further discussion?
I have one other thing, Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. I would suggest during that committee time, if they would also reach out to some businesses on wanting to plan being put, forward in place, and then also with plowing and shoveling.
Yes, very good. Thank you. That will be added to for staff to consider moving forward. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 on the agenda under Street and Alleys, to review the request for a slow children at play sign to be placed in the alley at 514 11th Street North. We do have some information with respect to that. I did do some checking on there because Britt is not available. She's taking some well-deserved vacation time. And we've done this in the past. It doesn't take much to put a sign up there. There are children that live in that area, so the requests haven't been significant, but the request is for us to put a slow children at play sign in the alleyway there. And so I look for some information, discussion, moving forward with this request from the council. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, I'll just move that we authorize that sign. We've done a number of those over the years in different places. We've done it on South Side. And usually once the children leave the area, we pull the signs down anyway, so temporary signs are fine.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Baraboo to authorize the city to erect a slow children at play sign to be placed in the alley near 514 11th Street North. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Paulson? Okay, well, let's get that corrected. Counselor Paulson, it was been moved and supported to move forward to allow this children at play sign to be placed at 514 11th Street North. And there was support, and we're taking a vote now. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 3 is the request for barricades on Chestnut Street in front of Flamer's Bar on July 25th. This item will be removed from the agenda. Flamer has been notified us that they're not going to hold their event this year because of the difficulty in complying with the CDC guidelines in the Minnesota Department of Health and the governor's order. So the golf tournament for the Virginia Golf Course has been canceled, and the event at the Flamer's Bar has also been canceled. Item number 4 under Building and Grounds is approve the resolution to make application and accept funds from the IRRB Trails Program for the Silver Lake development. And this is to make application, the resolution to make application for funds.
Also move, Mayor, to make
I'll
the
move
application.
resolution forward.
Okay, moved by Councillor Paulson, thank you, and supported by Councillor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, okay, I will wait then. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let's move down to item number 10, if we may. Under other items concerned, update from Brian Silber for the DNR Tree Grant Program. I see our Park and Rec Director is here. He's got a busy day today. So Brian, thanks for coming to the Committee of the Whole meeting and give us an update on this exciting grant opportunity.
Yes, good morning, Council. Thank you for having me today. You'll be happy to know that you need to take zero action on what I am presenting to you today. It is basically informational for you only. The Minnesota DNR has a grant opportunity that we are able to apply for regarding trees. As you are well aware, we have a lot of publicly owned trees, not only in our parks, but along all of our boulevards. And a lot of these trees have a little bit of age on them and are starting to get into the point that they are not as healthy as they once were. Well, what this grant will allow us to do is it will allow us to conduct it is a 3-year grant that we are applying for. And in year 1, it would pay for a tree inventory to be completed here within the city so that we know what all of our trees are. Secondly, the grant would then pay for some training for staff to either go to training to be able to identify at-risk trees and proper maintenance for those trees, or it would pay for us to send a staff member to become a certified arborist, which would be very beneficial to us. I've already spoken with several of the Park and Rec staff, and I have a couple of individuals on staff that would be interested in attending and getting this training to help our trees here throughout town. Additionally, in year 2, after the tree study is done, this grant would help us in writing both a tree policy and an emerald ash borer policy. In year 2, we would also be identifying those at-risk trees that are in desperate need of removal, and we could begin removing those. Year 3 is the really exciting part for me because it gets us to the point that this grant will help us fund the planting of new trees. Removing at-risk trees is a good thing for us to do for safety, but eventually, if we keep removing trees, we are not going to have any trees. So this grant helping fund the planting of trees is a great thing for our city long term. Another beautiful thing about this grant is we are able to use in-kind services as our match. So utilizing our staff's time for going to these things and our equipment's time, That is part of the match. In addition, we can utilize some of the money that we already budget for trees as part of our match. So there is no additional funding needed for this grant. So I wanted to make everybody aware that we are moving forward with this grant application. The grants are due here the beginning of next month, and we should hear something back in the spring of next year as to whether or not we have received this grant.
Thank you, Brian. Very exciting. Councilor Bearable.
Just one question, Brian. I'm assuming then with what I'm hearing, the cost in the end would be the purchase of trees from us. They don't provide that in the grant, do they?
They do provide money for purchase of
They do?
trees,
Okay.
yes.
Because if we take down these great big trees, you can't plant a tree in that same spot for a number of years after you grind them, correct?
Correct. We have many locations throughout town where we have removed and ground stumps in the past, and those spots are prime for tree plantal here in the next couple of years.
Okay, you've answered my questions. Thank you. I think it's a good thing, so you apply for it.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Well, Brian, you said we don't have to take any action, but don't we need to be able to accept anything? Or will that come later where there's a?
That would come later.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
And we can waive, we can have a resolution prepared in the event this passes for at the next council meeting. Councilor Paulson, any questions or comments about this grant opportunity through Park and Rec?
No, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Beyondich?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I do have one more announcement.
Okay,
Tonight's movie that was scheduled at the Fountain, Star Wars, the last Star Wars that came out, has been postponed until Thursday. I have been on the phone with our licensing company, and they are moving our license to Thursday evening due to our rain at no additional charge to us. So tonight's movie of Star Wars has been moved to Thursday evening at dusk, right at the Fountain, and we will be showing the movie around the Fountain this year to be promoting social distance. Thank you.
and thank you. Maybe we'll see stars in on Thursday too, so, right? Okay, all right, thank you. We'll looking for a motion to approve the request for the tree grant program and have a resolution ready for the next council meeting for approval.
I will move we prepare a resolution to apply for and accept the appropriate funds for the tree program.
Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support. Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Brian? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Brian, I'd like to, let's move on to number 7 on the agenda. Some information to discuss. It's under Building and Grounds to review the request from riders to use the city-owned parking lot adjacent to their property to hold a street dance. And I see we have a representative from Riders Bar here. Once you come forward. And please state your name once again for the record, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Morning. My name is Michael Burke.
Okay, Michael. Mr. Burke, we did have a letter of request from you with respect to some of the in-kind services that you're requesting for this event. We've had some discussion with our Park and Rec department, with our city staff, and we're here at the city council meeting to discuss at what level of in-kind services we can provide for you. Traditionally, we've provided some barricades for other, events, beanbag tournaments, street dances, and things of that nature. We provided extra law enforcement on staff in order to accommodate the crowds outside to maintain, and then of course the barricades you've indicated there, the encompassing, you've agreed to do that. But you're making some requests for the city to give you some other things like tents and things of that nature. And so I think we're here to discuss, what level of commitment we're going to have. If this was a community event, raising fundraiser for community, improvements and things of that nature, we have our facilities available, but this is a private event that you're providing, and you're requesting an extension of a private business in order to accomplish this, and we try to do that to help you. But there are certain levels, I think, of in-kind services that we are willing to provide. I think we're here at the council to discuss that. So with that information, what are you looking for from the council, based on what's in your letter?
Basically, what's in the letter, yeah, just,
Okay, thank you. Any questions you might have for us as we continue to discuss this?
not offhand. I'm rather new at this. I've never done any of this before, so.
Sure. Well, we can help you do that. We can help the staff do that, but there are certain things that we can and we have provided in the past and have not provided in the past based upon your request. So we're here to discuss that and see if we can work something out to help you, have a successful event. So first we'll go to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My first concern is that it's not going to be a fenced-off area, that there, in the past, we've been, and when we've had our our Land of the Loon downtown parties, we've started to really crack down on having a designated area where alcohol can be served. And as I read your letter, I don't see that there's going to be fencing put up.
Actually, yeah, we plan on getting some snow fencing or whatever to put around the parking lot.
So the scope of this just seems very large. I do know that we have, or I'm not comfortable letting you have the tents or borrow the tents. I would think there should be a rental fee involved with that, simply because if we're going to be doing those tents, people are going to want to borrow the tents all the time because they're very nice. So for a private event, that would be my one thing. I would be more comfortable with a plan worked out that shows where the fencing is going to be, who's going to be putting it in, where the access points are going to be, because if there's fence all the way around the parking lot and you meet the 250 people quota that we're at right now, if there is an emergency, how are they going to get out? I mean, I know it's snow fencing, but snow fencing can be a trip hazard in an emergency. So I'd cautiously ask that we come up with a plan and have a actual plan in place that you've worked with Chief Mattson and Chief Lewis and probably Mr. Alto on, because it's a city parking lot. I think the idea of holding it's a good idea. I just want to be very careful. And I speak from a father's point of view. Having a party in a parking lot is really easy for my 15-year-old to all of a sudden go in there, somebody sets a beer down, not that my kid would, and grab a beer and be gone. And so I really want to be very, and I'm sure you want to make those same things.
Totally understandable, yes. I've got children of my own. So.
I think that your request is a valid request, but we just need to make sure that we have a plan and know who's going to be paying for it or what kind of.
For the access points that you were talking about, basically we just wanted like a wooden barricade, whatever, to block off the alley part, so that people would be able to access in through there. The rest of the lot would be a snow fence around it.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I'm at right now, and I'd be interested if there's any other questions.
Yeah, thank you. I would go one step further from Councilor Johnson, indicating that, I support, whatever you're trying to do, any business that's trying to, particularly during this time. And we can help you do that. I'm not personally supportive of even renting the tents to you. These are, this is a private event, not a public event. And, you have the capability to put your own shelves up if you want, because, what we have, what we're utilizing for these public spaces, and we have a limited supply of that. So that means something you want to consider as we move forward with a plan. And I think what we'd like to do is have you, as Councilor Johnson indicated, have you meet with our staff, come up with a plan, and they'll make a recommendation to us in time for the next council meeting. Your event is scheduled for August 1st. So we're not going to have time to, you have to get it to us by Friday, that plan, so we would urge you to do that. We'll look for a motion moving forward, but just hold that thought for a moment. Councilor Bearable?
I'm going to ask this of our attorney. Brian, I think he would need an extension of his liquor liability insurance for doing something outside. He'd have to come up with an extension from his carrier, whoever that is. Correct on that question?
Counselor, that is correct. From my standpoint, I think and just as fair heads up, what I would look for in the plan that's kind of being discussed, and I think a couple of the topics that need to be addressed through the staff in formulating the plan. Number one is the extension of that liquor license, and it sounds like by implementing some snow fencing, it may be addressing one of the primary hurdles that typically is attendant to extension of a liquor license, and that is making sure that the area that's going to be extended to is contiguous to the building. And the second item that I would request or hope that is addressed is that there's some sort of plan laid out that in advertising or signage, there'd be some sort of a COVID plan put in place, and that during the event, the limitations and requests to observe social distancing would be advertised to patrons, and that be made part of the plan, just so that the city's aware that there's something in place. Because, I mean, as a practical matter, the city doesn't have a real ability to meaningfully enforce that plan. So we just look to the business owners, I think, to try and help us with the obligations that there are.
I got one more question for you.
Yes, Councilor Beer.
One more
Thank you,
question, Brian. Being that it would be separate but extended to his building, would he need a extension on his liability insurance if somebody gets injured, et cetera, on that extension, or would his current policy, if he has one, cover it?
Thank you.
Counselor, to answer that question, yes, there would need to be some communication with the liquor liability carrier to extend to that new space. As liquor licenses operate, and I'm sure the council is fully aware, the identified space is what is insured. So if there's an extension to that space, there needs to be at least a temporary extension to cover the newly covered space.
I'm talking about personal injury, and is that covered under the liquor liability?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I think that did you discuss this before? It came out of the council meeting. During that time, our city clerk and our police chief has met in preparation for this request at this committee, the whole meeting. And Pam might have some information on some of the questions that we have, and you have been working together moving forward. Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Britt and I have decided that this is basing it on the COVID regulations that we had set up previously for the bars that were serving alcohol and food out of their regular premise. So the extension of the liquor license, they would need the $1 million policy as requested before, and as well as the commercial liability of $1 million. So they would need that certificate of liability presented to us before they could proceed.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Councilor Paulson, any questions with respect to this request?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion. Councilor Barnzelli?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, what time is this thing going to start and when would it end?
Approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and when the city noise ordinance takes effect, 11 p.m. or something like that on a weekend night?
So it would be after 10? Is there going to be alcohol coming out of the back door?
Yes, sir.
So you'll have to fence that. You're going to put it you're not going to use that whole lot back there, just the closest to 4th Avenue.
Closest
Right
to
out the back door straight.
Right, yes. Yeah, right, straight out the back door. And then not the whole lot all the way to the first street here. I think the last 3 slots would still be open, parking in the lot.
Mayor, councilors, in the past, when we had these street dances, I want to think that we hired a couple of officers. Do you remember that, Charlie? This had to be 15 years ago.
Councilor
We have
Bearable?
we have extra officers whenever we have these outside events like this. We always have them on staff when we do this. And normally, we've done it two ways. We provide it, or we've asked the provider of the event to pay for those extra officers.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what we're going to ask you to do is continue to work with Pam and our staff, other staff members, to provide the plan that we're requesting, that we talked about at the council meeting before. Make sure you meet all the requirements that we have asked you to do and set forth for Pam, and you should be able to get that information that's required by Thursday. The only issue is that as far as the tent rental goes, my personal perspective is that we wouldn't, provide the tents or even rent them to you. That's my personal opinion, but work with our staff to find out what needs to be done. And then I would ask, because it's going to be for August 1st, before their next council meeting, right? So I'm gonna ask that once you get that plan in place, that our staff will send out email to all of us indicating whether or not this is appropriate and if we met all the requirements. So my question is, do we make the approval based upon that plan being presented today? Contingent upon. So we're looking for a motion at this level to do so. It would be an after-the-fact, obviously, approval at the city council meeting, but at least we'll have a motion moving forward. As long as you meet the requirements based upon that motion, you'll be allowed to conduct your event on August the 1st. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. Councilors? Yeah, not to include the rental of the tent.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Burke.
Al is supposed to be going to make the payment for the insurance today.
Yeah, and just work that through our city clerk. Yeah, just work that through our city clerk, Mr. Burke, and we should be just fine. Great, thank you very much, and we hope you have a successful event. We hope you're able to meet the requirements, in order to do so. What's the action that the council would like to take here? Councilor Johnson has his light on.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have another council meeting next Tuesday night, and that would be prior to the event. So I would.
Okay, let's do that.
I would ask that this be put on the agenda for Tuesday, and if everything's ready to go by Tuesday night, we can approve it for next Saturday or whatever it would be. But so I'm not comfortable approving it contingent upon, because we'd have to approve it on Tuesday anyway. So if you can have all your ducks in a row by Tuesday and present it with the plan and the support of the appropriate city staff, I think we would be able to move forward with it.
Hey, you want to make that motion there, Councilor Johnson?
That's a motion.
The motion is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. You have Councilor Paulson's and Councilor Beyondich's phone number. Steve, do you not, Councilor Johnson? You check and see if they heard that motion and get a yea or nay out of it. Okay, well, let's try to get that corrected.
Mayor, point of order, there's still 5 of us here. We could move forward with that particular item.
We could, and we probably have to, but I'd like to have, as often as possible, those councilors that are in attendance to vote. So let's take the vote right now without Councilor Paulson or Councilor Beyond's ability to listen in and provide their input. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Appreciate it very much. Okay, let's move to item number 9, review the letter of support for broadband development. That should be a rather straightforward request. Everybody have Counselor Bearable is no longer with us now, so. Okay, let's discuss it anyway. Counselor Johnson, Counselor Freelieb, Counselor Barnzelli, anything that you see here that is of concern or with respect to support for the broadband development, Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this demonstrates what we're doing right here is exactly why we need to work on the issue. And I will be bringing up at the end of the meeting too, having some connections with MediaCom as we are getting close to potentially having online school and online working in September. So I would move the letter of support forward.
Okay, Counselor Johnson moves the letter of support forward for the broadband. Is there any further is there support for that?
I'll support that.
Support by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Oh, good. Aye. Okay, Counselor Beyondis is an aye. Counselor Paulson?
We're going to get Counselor Pouncil on the phone too, Maya.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Paulson and Counselor Beyondich, are you an aye on this broadband letter of support?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion. Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Can you hear me, Sherry?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, let's move to item 5 on our building and grounds, review quotes for asbestos removal for the Midway Motel. This has been a point of discussion on significant discussion with respect to this motel, and it seems to be an albatross, and we're trying to figure out a way in which to demolish it and find a way in which to move forward. And before you have one of the steps necessary in which to accomplish this, and that is to review the quotes for asbestos removal for the Midway Motel. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. $20,000 is a lot of money to pull from nowhere to do this. I'm glad we have a price. Did we only get one bid on it?
We did receive two.
Was there two?
Two quotes.
Okay. Oh, one of them was $20,050 and the other one was $28,300. If we don't do anything with it now, it just stays there. It's not any challenge for anybody right now. It was just the developer wanted. So we could let the developer know that if they really want it down, that's what the bill is $20,008 if they wanted to help with that. I don't think we need to move forward at this time simply because of the amount of money. So that's my take on this at this time.
Okay, might be wise to maybe consider a tabling motion until further notice to review this at some future time, but that's up to the council. So anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the quotes for their asbestos removal of the Midway Motel? Councilor Freelieb.
I guess, we bought that property for more money than I think we should have paid for it. And at the time, I don't know that we really had a plan for it other than to take it down and create space there for entry into the development. And we just granted a 66-foot easement to provide that accessibility to that area. But you're right, we kind of have a albatross or white elephant sitting there, and what are we going to do with it? And the first step in doing something with it is to remove the asbestos and hazardous materials before you can take that down. I certainly, when we voted in favor of purchasing that motel, did not anticipate all these additional costs. I was hoping we'd get assistance from the IRRR or some other source to provide us that opportunity to take that down, clear that space, and then begin the development of that. Although I'm not sure, other than we talked about like a billboard that would provide some revenue to the city, an entryway to the city prior to the bridge, and so on and so forth. But at some point, we do have to do something with it, and I don't know, like, I agree with Counselor Johnson, it may not be timely yet to do that, given that they already have been provided that access, but at the same time, you've got this abandoned, vacated, useless building sitting there, and it's just not attractive to the entry to the city. So I guess I'd like to know what are we planning on doing with it and when? If anybody has a idea, I'd like to hear it, because we need to move forward with it. We purchased it for a significant cost, and we should be looking at a way to get that money back in some fashion.
I think if I may give you a little background real quickly, then we'll move on to Councilor Bearwood, the goal, and Councilor Johnson. The goal and objective was to demolish the property, not only provide the access, an extension of Midway Drive into the potential business development, but there's enough space there to develop a business there. We control that particular space, and we could sell that to a business or somebody who wanted to build that's maybe part of the industrial park, or we would have the ability to put some kind of a commercial development, whatever that might be, on that parcel. That was the goal and intent early on in which to do so. So just to give you a little background about how our thinking process was back then as a body.
Can I just continue?
Yes,
just to
Councilor
ask,
Friedley.
like, you know, I know, do you have to have special certification and licensing to be able to remove asbestos, or do we have the option potentially to have city staff involved in that? I know that, like, throughout the city, there's a number of residents that have, because of the costs involved, have been removing their own asbestos pipes from the steam conversions. Whether they were licensed or not to do so, I don't know if you have to be. I guess I'm looking at other ways to accomplish what needs to be accomplished without these additional expenses. If we could somehow assign the city to do that, or is that something we can't do because of the licensing or certification necessary to do that kind of removal? And I guess I also would wonder why the IRRR was resistant or opposed to assisting us in this capacity when they do have monies for economic development, and this was the intent and purpose of purchasing that property. So those are some of the questions I have, and I don't really know where to get those answers, but I would like to see us move forward in removing that structure and moving forward with whatever plan we have to provide revenue from the investment we made on that building. Thank you.
And we can get clarification from our engineering department and staff, but private removal of asbestos follows different guidelines than public removal of asbestos, and we have certain requirements we have to follow. So we'll go to Councilor Bearable first, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Bearable.
Maybe I lost my train of thought or forgotten. Did we apply to the IRRB under the commercial program, or just for the removal of the asbestos for tear down? Because part of those costs would be covered if we applied through the commercial demolition program. I don't remember how we applied and what the final answer was. No, if I remember right.
We applied twice on the commercial demolition program for the demo part of it.
Yeah.
But not for the asbestos removal. I think there was a requirement that we would remove the asbestos, they would approve money for the demolition. That was part of the grant for commercial demolition. It was denied on 2 occasions by the company.
I thought, hadn't we in the past sent somebody from our staffing for removal of asbestos for training? Didn't we do that a number of years ago? But hard asbestos, Councilor Friedlib is right. You can take your own hard asbestos. I've done it myself, and you take it to the landfill, certain criteria. You just pound it up and do. I did a whole house with siding that was hard and flooring, and of my folks way back. And you're allowed to do that privately. So I don't know where the liability would be if our staff does it on the hard stuff. You can't touch the soft stuff. I know that. Because that you can breathe, and you have to have special equipment for the soft stuff around steam. But there's no steam in that facility, but there's probably pipes that are wrapped with asbestos, and all they do is they wet it down and get rid of it in bags. It's the only way they get rid of it. So if we can't do it, we can't, because it's commercial. That's
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson. Counselor Paulson, go ahead. You're on the cell phone of Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you for the innovation in technology. So my question is, can we just receive and file this until we can maybe talk with Bill Hennis about an actual plan for that location and that property? And if we can do that, or if we can't do that, I think we should maybe hold off until we can write a successful grant between the city and the IRRB. That would be my thoughts, or to hold off on the abatement if there's not a danger or a hazard until a development actually comes forward, or a developer actually comes forward between the, I don't know what John Fito's formal company name is, but until there's a necessity, I guess is my point. So would it be possible to receive and file?
Just
Yeah,
table it.
we could do both, or we could table it. I think that sounds like a pretty good motion that you just made, Counselor Paulson.
So would you like me to make a motion just to receive and file, or to table?
Well, I guess I'll hear from the other council, but I would prefer that we move to table, as we can continue with the discussion. I guess it really doesn't make that much difference, but to receive and file it, I think, I guess both of it will work. But if we table it for additional, pending additional information or pending it elsewhere, I guess it's still bringing back up the discussion. So either way, I guess we could do both.
I'm fine with the tabling. That's fine. I just would like to get a little bit more information put together in terms of a development plan for that location.
Okay, so your motion is to table?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there support?
All support.
Support by Counselor Baraboo. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's go to other item concern. Item 8 is discuss the committee meeting structure. This is something we've been discussing as moving forward. This is something Councilor Paulson put on the agenda today. And so before we talk about that, I would like just to make one comment, if I may. If this is something we're going to do, I would ask respectfully that if we're going to do a change in committee structure, how we do things moving forward, or have a change in that, if we could continue with the current committee structure until the reorganization of the council after the election in January, I would prefer that. But I open that up for discussion, and since Councilor Paulson put this on the agenda, I would go to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason I wanted to put this on the agenda is in light of all of our special meetings that we've been having and the length of time. I personally feel that it would be a little bit more helpful, or a lot more helpful, if we went back to more of a small committee structure, so that small committee could basically get saturated within that topic. And I feel like there's all sorts of these special meetings where our normal committee meetings are 4 hours at length, and it just feels like we're not able to kind of drill down enough within each certain topic to become more, I wouldn't say expert, but I guess that's the word that comes to my mind. So for instance, just being on the insurance committee and having those meetings and just really getting all the pertinent information together and being able to digest that and ask the questions in a committee level structure, I really appreciated that. And the amount of meetings now that we're having and the length of time that those meetings are going, I feel that it would be much more productive to go back to that committee structure. And with all due respect, I don't want to switch up things, or I'm not trying to stir the pot here. I just feel like it would be a little bit better time spent and respectful of all of our time if we went back to that, or had a conversation about that.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Would it be acceptable to you as we move forward with this, that we continue with the current structure until the end of the year, and when we do the reorganization, have some significant discussion about with the new council coming on, with this committee structure at that time? Would that be acceptable to you?
At this time, Mayor, I really feel that we should have this conversation, and especially if these additional special meetings are going to continue to happen, and the time slots in which they happen. It's been a lot, I think, on all of us. I mean, I'd really like to hear from everybody, but my comfort level would be to have this discussion now, or at an appropriate timed meeting.
Okay, well, I think we'll look at the other councilors' perspective. Then it would be acceptable for you to us to have just one meeting specifically to discuss this committee structure, how it's going to work, the compensation, the adjustments that are going to be made, and those kind of things. Would that be an acceptable process moving forward?
Yes, but I still would like to hear what the other counselors might have to say this
Sure.
morning.
Of course. Thank you. Any other comments by any of the councilors with respect to this? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm on the fence about this simply because I like being able to have a meeting all at once. But I also, when there is another committee meeting, which happens rarely, and it's only a few committees that seem to do that, they get all the information, and then that information is not all communicated back to the council as a whole. But it is, I think that as we're moving forward with this, it's some different, a hybrid or something, it does need to change, because I have the luxury of being free. I'm not retired, but I have the luxury of being free most of the time right now, being unemployed. However, if we want people on this council who, if we want to expand our diversity or get other folks on, we need to be able to schedule meetings when people can attend. And that I think is part of the problem, as absent COVID, we meet at 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays, and people who might be interested in being on the council look at that and go, that's the beginning of my workday. And that's a challenge for folks. So I think we need to have some serious discussion on what the structure looks like, what leadership looks like, how do we make sure everybody's getting the same information, but not have to be sitting in 3 or 4 hour meetings or an hour meeting. That's the other alternative. Do these become 6 1-hour meetings instead of 1 4-hour meeting, and what does that look like? And then I'd also like, the staff all to weigh in. They work for us. They'll do what we ask them to, but I think we don't want to create a hostile or inconvenient workday for them either. So that's my 4.5 cents on the topic.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Baraboo.
Thank you, Mayor. And Steve, thanks for your comments on that. I like committee structures, the smaller ones, in certain conditions, okay? We just went through and had a whole number of meetings on the street program coming up, and we did that specifically with authorization to do that through the council, to have the committee, which I liked, and we spent a lot of hours on this, and we had staff at these meetings, but we tried to keep the council informed by having minutes presented to you and all the structure work that has been done with the potential for the bonding, with the feasibility studies, the big documents. So in cases like that, committees are very worthwhile, because it took us a lot of time to do that. But then other times there are things that we end up through committee that end up us with long discussions at council meetings or meetings anyway. So I think it deserves further discussion, absolutely. We need to look at this, but if we need to, we could maybe do a hybrid. If we have the same committees, example would be the insurance committee, because we have health issues that come up for our health insurance. That might be a committee at times that we may need, and not just rely on staff, because we have people that have expertise in insurance besides staff. So there are places where we need to have smaller committees, but they could be done in a special venue. But I kind of agree with the mayor at this point to wait until the reorganizational meeting in January? Because we're going to have maybe a change in council individuals, maybe not.
Well,
My
you know,
comment.
and to Counselor Paulson's point, I mean, she wants the discussion. I think we should have the discussion. We are having it now. And maybe continue to have this discussion, kind of find a hybrid and moving forward and have that ability, you know, to have that available for implementation during a reorganizational meeting. So I'll go back to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Paulson, anything else you'd like to add or comment about this?
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the comments, and I think it does warrant maybe some further discussion, obviously. And I really appreciate this being on the agenda. So I think going forward, if everyone's okay, maybe we could call a meeting. I hate to do that with another special meeting, but maybe we could call a meeting to kind of discuss this at length and just see what kind of a hybrid or what we could come up with that might be a little bit more effective and more respectful of our time,
Okay.
including staff time.
Yes, and thank you, Counselor Paulson. I think by including staff in this moving forward, this has been a very challenging year. There's been a lot of more special meetings, more than I've ever had since I've been on the council since 2010, and then now serving as the mayor capacity. But this is very unusual for us to have special meetings like this, but it's been a tough year. There's been a lot of things that have gone by the wayside. We've had the MEC, we've got, you know, the legislative stuff, we've had the COVID-19 things, we've had some personnel issues, those kind of things where, you know, it's required to have a committee of the whole meeting together for us to discuss that. So that's why we have a special meeting and for these important events. But moving forward, to find some kind of a hybrid is warranted for additional discussion moving forward. So when Britt gets back, we could take a look at scheduling a meeting and sitting down with staff and all of us and talk about what that looks like. Councilor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I like your recommendation, and also Councilor Baraboo's. We'll do this, probably vote on it next year, once we get new people in there.
Yeah, but I think as Councilor Paulson indicated, have the conversation moving forward to see, to come up with an idea to do so.
Yeah.
You know, whether we implement it before or after, but we'll have a mechanism in place in which to make an adjustment if that's what the council decides to do.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, Mayor, I have no objection to having a further discussion before the first of the year. I wasn't implying that, but the official action should be after the new council is seated in the first of the year. So I think it's a well-warranted conversation we need to have, and we can go into more depth, and we can include staff with their recommendations too at a special meeting or whatever it may be.
And I think that would be the purpose of meeting in which to do that, you know, to use Councilor Paulson's term, to drill down into the minutia of it. So anything else to be discussed about this? I think we should probably have staff schedule a meeting with to determine what's the best time for all of us and to sit down and talk about this issue, make sure all the staff is involved that will be affected by each one of these committees. So I think it's important to do so. Anything else? Councilor Paulson?
No, Mayor, I just really respectfully thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. Any other further discussion? Councilor, anyone? So we'll schedule a meeting in the future moving forward. Have staff put together a meeting that accommodates everybody's schedule to further discuss this matter. Thank you very much. Okay, one more item on the agenda, which is item number 6, which is the painting of the park area adjacent to the senior center. I did have Pam include a list of work that the senior citizens would like to have done. They've done some homework. We've got some paint samples, are ready to move forward. They're looking for some assistance in that regard. I know that Britt has had some, our city administrator has had some discussion with the senior center and with our staff as to what can be accomplished and how this can be accomplished. So I know that the senior citizen staff, many of them have talked to a number of councilors, and I just wanted to make sure that we got all information into one package so we all understand what they're requesting. So in your packet is a memorandum of that conversation that I had with who is now the representative for this group, Donna Peralt. Thank you, Donna, for all your hard work in that regard. So as we talk about this, this is what they're requesting. And I just want to clarify in this email that was sent out that I did have a painting contractor who I know very well, doesn't want the job, doesn't want to be bidding on it, does not advocating that a private contractor do this. He just gave us some recommendations on what would be the best way to move forward if we decide, however we decide to do it, for the long-term improvement and that there's being requested by the senior center. So I open that up for further discussion. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is that just about everything on here it will be done by volunteers or the seniors. I would, the only thing I see on here that couldn't be done by lay people, I'm guessing, is the sandblasting. Does the city have the ability to do that?
We do.
Because anything else, power washing or anything like that, I would think there's folks to do that. And the reason this is coming before us because that is a city park between the two buildings. Is that correct?
It is correct, sir.
So I guess I would, just to keep the discussion going, I would move to allow the Senior Citizen Center representative to meet with, I would guess, Brian and Britt to set a date and maybe do some recruiting of other folks to come help do this project when it fits in. And then it looks like there's only one thing really to be sandblasted, which is some metal. And we move forward, and we're sprucing up a lot of other stuff around town, and it looks like the investment of the city to this is just some time and some person power. So I would move forward with this.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely for further discussion. If I just could hold off for one moment, Councilor Bearbu?
Yeah, that's fine.
Councilor Beyondich, you had some conversation as well. What are your thoughts with respect to, you had some discussion with some seniors in that regard?
Thank you. Yes, I've had numerous discussions with different members of the senior center and felt their frustration. So I feel like if we can get moving on at least getting that sandblasting done with a group of volunteers, I mean, I'm willing to go down there and put some time in to help them. I've discussed with them some of the plants that can be used out front. I'm willing. I have flower beds at home that I need to thin out, and I told them this fall when I start thinning out my plants, I am more than willing to share them and help plant them and beautify that space as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Johnson. I'm sorry, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions in light of speaking with a few of the members there. Does this fall under Park and Rec or Public Works to maintain that location?
Well, we're parking, our park department, our Public Works, our temporary people have been mowing that grass we have, but it actually, technically, we've whether it's officially or unofficially designated this as a little pocket park is what we've designated it as. So either one, either the city or the park department could do that, help us with the sandblasting and do part of the work. So moving forward, does that clarify anything for you?
Yep, it kind of leads to my next thought process.
Sure.
Is on these pocket parks or on city-owned property, could we have a specific designation under which department is responsible for the maintenance of those locations?
Sure, I think that's appropriate to do so. Naming it a pocket park makes it a park. I don't know, but sir, we could certainly do that, Councilor Paulson.
Okay, and then my next question is, I understand that we hired the summer workers later this year, and they're inundated. I truly understand that, but I do know that this has been a concern for these folks for quite a while, and I guess I'm a little surprised that it's gone to a volunteer to do this, a volunteer status, when I really feel that the city should have maybe put, I don't want to say preferential, but it should have been on our list, and that's why I'm asking for that designation. Maybe it's too little too late now, but I really feel that if it's a city pocket park and it's something that we should be maintaining, that should be on our annual schedule of maintenance, including the rest of the lots, accordingly.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. I think that, I think what we can do is move forward with talking with our staff, getting Britt to talk with Eddie Alto, our park and, our Public Works Director and others, Brian Silber, to see if, there's any way they can fit this into the schedule for the city to help do that or do the whole thing. And if not, maybe we can move to a volunteer to help beautify the city, just like the Marty Beyond His Cleanup. Volunteers come and do that. That's normally a requirement of our Public Works Department. But so we do things in concert together. So maybe be a combination of the two if the city staff doesn't have the personnel or the time which to do it this year. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I appreciate that. I just feel like we need to be a little bit more organized with each of these locations, and even with the new pocket park. I think it's important to get that on a maintenance schedule.
Okay, so let's get this information that we've disseminated to the council, to our city staff, and then on to her discussions, or our city staff's discussions with Park and Rec and Public Works to see if this can be accomplished within the city. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have just a list of the parks and their addresses around town?
We can certainly get them if Brian should have them.
And I think that's part of what the process of hiring Brian has been over the last year and a half to 2 years, is to get a handle on what we have, get an inventory. I was in Midway the other day, and I know that Parkway hadn't been mowed in a while, but it's been a crazy summer. So, but I know there's all those lists and getting stuff. I did see something amazing at the park yesterday. They were in where the slides and the equipment are, and they were raking it with a machine and getting the dirt out of the corners, and I've not seen that done in many years. So, I think to Julianne's point, we are definitely working towards having a comprehensive maintenance plan, and that's something that I think some areas have been just because we didn't have a Parks and Rec director for several years. So I think we're heading in an amazing direction, and look forward to being able to help down there at the senior center as well.
Okay, so it looks like we're leaning toward directing staff to take a look at this list of information that they're requesting and try to find a way which the city to accomplish that, and if not, we can find some kind of a hybrid moving forward. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm looking, probably we'll have a motion to direct staff to meet and confer. I'm sorry, the motion was, I'm sorry, I forgot. The staff, for staff, okay, the motion and the support. Is there any further discussion?
Just one quick thing.
Councilor Bearable.
Steve, your motion didn't include Public Works, and they should be included in that motion.
I just said staff.
I thought you said park staff.
All staff.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, that's the last item on the agenda for today. Councilor Johnson, I'm going to have to respectfully leave. I have to leave, so you can adjourn the meeting or however further discussion you have, and I apologize for that, so thank you.
So I'm going to bring up, I would like to make a motion to request staff to contact Mediacom about why the issues with internet connection are so pervasive in town. I posted last night a little frustration on Facebook, and the immediate response was "Me too" from everywhere. I think that we are in a time where our media, our cable internet services should be at a higher standard than they are. For me to not be able to watch a 30-minute streaming show because my internet connection drops off at least twice is extremely frustrating. I know in March when everybody went online, school and home, there were some hiccups, and then they seem to have gotten better for a while, and now they're lagging again. In anticipation of my best guess, which is going to be a hybrid of in-person and online schooling and people continuing to work from home. I think that MediaCom should come up here and let us know what kind of status, what are our servers, what are the lines coming in. I think we contract with them for 10 years. And I had to beg and plead to get the line from my house to the pole changed. And that took 2 visits and several phone calls. And I know I'm not the only one. So again, my motion is to direct staff to contact MediaCom and have somebody with some knowledge come and explain what they're doing to help keep our internet service at where it should be for citizens and businesses.
Okay, with that, Steve, I think that's a good idea, but it's not just MediaCom, it's other providers of internet in this community that need to be looked at. Rams has taken on a project and paid for it to look at the overall speeds of the internet in St. Louis County, and it's not good in Virginia, Minnesota even. So there's some other issues that we have with the broadband and stuff, and there's a lot of people that don't have MediaCom in this community. They got satellite or they got other services, so it's a bigger problem than just MediaCom, so we need to look at the whole overall. But I agree, it's going to be tough, because I know it's supposed to have 25 megabytes at my house, and I had 13 when I ran the test on it, so that's not a good thing here in town, even when we're supposed to have good stuff through Northeast Cooperative Service with the high degree of what we put in. And we're having all kinds of trouble with our Zoom stuff and losing stuff all the time with it, so it's an issue. So I agree, we should look at this, and I don't know how to start this. Maybe have staff start looking, Pam or Sherry or whoever, to start maybe setting up some meetings with these individuals.
Britt did tell me that new internet is scheduled for September 5th, 6th, and 7th for here, so.
Okay, was there support of his motion? No, okay. Would you repeat it, Steve, please?
That staff's contact MediaCom, who we have the contract with, who we are directly, I mean, we're paying them. So to direct staff to contact MediaCom to provide us with what they're doing and to make sure that our equipment is up to date and where it should be.
Okay. Any further discussion? Julianne, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Oh, thanks.
I had a question. So the city goes through which mechanism? Is it access? What is the city's internet?
We've just changed over to CTC stuff and.
So we're right. Okay, so we're CTC. I think in the larger discussion, I would also like to hear if MediaCom does come up or is able to come and give us an update or a briefing of what capabilities they have. I would like to understand where the school lies in this as well. And I mean, maybe these conversations are being had within the whole broadband discussion, but in just preparing for a potential hybrid situation with schools, are a lot of people on MediaCom? I don't know. As Councilor Baraboo is saying, a lot of people have other services, but I would also like to have that conversation include being prepared for September school date and what that might look like from the school's perspective. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but I think it's definitely going to be a real challenge.
If I may comment on that as Vice Chair, of course, you all know my wife sits on the school board. They had tremendous issues throughout the school districts with the online learning with places that didn't have good service, especially out in the rural area. They had to put in hotspots. They had to move some buses around with stuff to get the kids to do that. So it's not just in Virginia, it's all over the school district. They've been discussing and working on all this stuff. I know with the new schools that are coming up to have much better service, but I don't know where that is, so it's probably best to contact either Noel Schmidt or somebody from the school in their media and technical support process at the school to talk about that, because they have technicians that are experts in all this stuff at the school. Okay, is there anything else? Do we need to vote on that motion? We do need to vote on the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, is there anything else that we need? I notice we don't have, I guess we got other items of concern on the agenda. Is there any other items that anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn? Okay, hearing none, motion to adjourn. Okay, support to adjourn?
Support.
Support, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Motion,
Aye.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.